Hi, welcome everyone to the Inside Story podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of building diverse businesses and becoming a successful entrepreneur. I'm your host, Tursun Halimova, a business coach and facilitator on a mission to help build impactful businesses. Today, I'm excited to host Marco Houwen, a founder of The Entrepreneur, where Marco helps entrepreneurs maximize peak performance through inner peace. Marco, it's great to have you on the Inside Story podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason, for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
To start off, I would read several unfinished sentences, and I would love you to finish them for us, please.
Let's do that.
Being an entrepreneur means
Everything.
building an impactful business requires
Persistence.
failure is
The beginning of success.
success is a result of,
Failure.
and the last one, being fulfilled in life means.
Finding true happiness.
Great. Thank you so much for those, Marco. I appreciate it. There are so many ways I could start this conversation. And I think you are an entrepreneur bringing wealth and diverse experience into today's conversation. As we will see, you have started, you've created, built several businesses. And I think it will be exciting for our listeners to get the glimpse of your entrepreneurial journey and hopefully also learn from your wisdom, given that you are also a teacher and a coach, closely working with entrepreneurs and helping them succeed. I wanted to start our conversation taking us back to 1998 when you started your first business in the south of France, backed by a large loan. Unfortunately, this venture failed, leaving you in debt. What key lessons have you learned from that experience? And how did this experience shape your approach to entrepreneurship in the years to come?
I think the main lessons I learned through that experience, besides a lot of lessons, but the main lessons is really don't try it alone. Partner up. You don't know it all. Find people who are great or amazing in their specific area and partner up with them.
Indeed. I think that is such a valid point because entrepreneurship is very challenging journey, and having a partner alongside of you, at least one person, right? I think makes the job much easier. You have someone to share your burden with, as well as hopefully have an emotional and psychological support. And I know, having spoken to some investors, this is actually a red flag for some of them. When you are a solo founder, they would rather prefer supporting, investing in startups that have at least two co-founders.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the co-founding, even though I'm a solopreneur now, but we will come back to that later. Especially when you start up at the beginning of your journey, while you don't have experience, you don't know even who to ask. And if you are two people or three, then it's easier because then your combined wisdom will add to, like, with 25, or how old was I? 24.
Yeah, indeed. And Marco, to give a bit kind of quick rundown, this is not going to be fair towards you because you have such a rich experience. But for our listeners to get them up to speed, in the early 2000s, you had an idea to create a personal development business, but struggled to monetize it. And you eventually abandoned this idea, or at least you parked the idea, right? And you didn't let go of that vision you had in your mind that eventually you will come back to it. After taking 17 years to focus on other projects, you went on to start and build several other businesses. Some of them include the following: Datacenter, Luxembourg, which was an internet platform; EuroDNS, a Luxembourg-based domain register and website hosting provider; LuxCloud, a global cloud service brokerage with offices in Luxembourg, Palo Alto, as well as in Singapore. And you employed 50 employees at the time. And I guess from what I can tell, this was maybe the biggest company and most international that you have built. Can you walk us through the evolution of your entrepreneurial journey and how these diverse ventures have shaped the entrepreneur that you have become?
So when we started up, so I had my first business, did it alone, didn't work out. which is fine. I think we all have to live through the share of our not success, because that's how we get successful. That's why I said failure as the predecessor of success. Having done that, created Datacenter Luxembourg in 2000, and EuroDNS and LuxCloud, they were all logical follow-up businesses. Like, in a sense, at that time when we started with Datacenter Luxembourg, internet was all new, and we actually explained people how it works. EuroDNS the same. They were not really in the domain name registrar in Luxembourg, and we made a European one. We actually eventually didn't talk about, so VoIPgate, voice over IP, was big as of 2003, 4, 5. I don't know anymore exactly. The common threads in all the businesses I created are actually incredible commitment to what you want to do, what you want to achieve, and the real strive. Yeah, be ready to work, be ready to put a lot of dedication into what you're doing, more than anybody would expect. If you do what everybody does, you will get what everybody gets. So it's important. That might be a common thread. On the less positive learnings, or the learnings are positive, but the experience wasn't. It's what I learned is really be sure that you always align what you do with what you really want to do, based on your identity, what you want to create in the world. And because that's how you not only become successful in the sense of successful, how people see success, but you become happy.
Mm.
You love what you do, and you create what you, and even if things are not working out, so that's not so bad, because that's how it is, because you are working on your mission in life. Huh? So you talked about your mission before. It's important to have a mission.
And is this mission, are you talking about company mission? Are you talking about personal mission? And how does one go about figuring out what mission to pursue? And as you have kind of demonstrated, you have had such a rich entrepreneurial journey. Does it mean you had multiple missions you were pursuing? Or all along there was one core mission, and then all the companies you've built kind of contributed towards that?
I would love to tell you that it was exactly that. That would be really cool now, but it wasn't. So ask yourself the question, who are you? Ask yourself the question, what's your identity? What are you standing for? And base your business on that. That's what is the most important thing, I think, for me. I wasn't doing that out of multiple reasons. You alluded to it. I had this idea in a platform around personal development. That's what I wanted to do. And then that was not monetizable at that time. So I did something else. And I let go of what was deeply rooted in myself. And it's one of the reasons why I needed to change in 2017. So all has its reasons. So what I can say is, when you create a business, define your identity, find out what is your identity, not like for once and for all, because that's not how identity works. Find your growth identity, as I like to call it, the identity which is evolving, because we are evolving. Find that, and then create on that basis. Create your businesses on that basis, and that will evolve, obviously, because we are evolving as human beings. We're understanding ourselves better. We are getting other input, and so on and so on. So our identity evolves. But I think that's probably the most important lesson I got from the other side, is if you're not doing that, you can become as successful in the eyes of anybody else as you want. If you don't feel as a success, if you don't feel happy with what you have created, you are not, well, you're not successful. And that's a huge topic, because success we see as something, yeah, depends on how we define success. Success is not when people tell you how good you are. Success is when you feel happy.
And content, I guess, right?
Yes, yes.
Be content and fulfilled with who you are and what you have accomplished. I think there's so much value what you're saying, and I couldn't agree more. I think this personal mission, knowing your identity, you called it, right? Knowing your identity, who you are and how you want to live your life. I think that can really act as a thread, as a common thread that ties together all of your decisions and experiences. And no matter what businesses you build or how many businesses you build, I guess, then you can bring that identity kind of that can influence every business you build, because every business has to align with who you are. And then knowing who you are and where you stand for, knowing your values, I think is so instrumental because that can guide you a lot in your entrepreneurial journey too.
So actually, to what you said about personal and professional or venture identity, in the best case, they are aligning somehow. If they are not aligning, doesn't mean that you cannot be successful, but it means it will be happy or content, but it will be more difficult. You need to find a way to be happy and content because that's why we do all that at the end.
Yeah. Also, reflecting back on these ventures you have started, some of them are actually still working. They're still in the market. I wonder how easy or challenging it was for you to let go, because I think as a business owner, when you build a business, when you create, it's your baby project. You work on it so much. You put a lot of your energy and effort, and then I guess there is that time that comes when you think, okay, it's time to move on, right? How difficult it was for you to move on from one project and start another one, and maybe then move ahead and start another one.
So in this period between 2000 and 2017, absolutely not, because everything was a logical evolution, which at that moment was totally logic. Now we had Datacenter, then we created EuroDNS, and then there was VoIPgate, and then I had another project which was not business-like, but which was the Luxembourgish Commercial Internet Exchange, which took one and a half year of my life, more or less, to create that. And then the next step was something in the same area, and so, which was LuxCloud. So it was an evolution. Obviously, when I changed from LuxCloud to I created some consultancy in blockchain and crypto at that time. When I did that, that was a big step. It was not something which I felt like an easy one because I really poured everything in. Now, between 2000 and 2017, the moment where I totally shifted, that was totally easy because the pain of not being authentic to myself became so big that it was easy to let go of the rest. Even so, I still don't have let go of everything. We are still sitting in boards back and forth. But like the attachment I had to the former businesses were easy to let go of at that.
And looking back, what would you say were some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome, especially in relation to those several ventures that you've started? And how did you navigate through these challenges?
So we were precursors. So we literally in this country we created for some Luxembourgish internet ecosystem. So we faced ignorance from all sides. So navigating that when you're in your 20s and you see how much of potential is there and people just are looking at you with contempt, this is a challenge. And we needed years to get this buy-in. Once you have it, then it's amazing. But so like really to work on that buy-in from people. The lesson here for others is in the industry you're working, create the necessary relationships and nurture them as soon as you can and be persistent. Because especially when you are in business which are creating, which are not, which are new or new ideas, new logics, it's really difficult to it takes time. So it takes time to have people on your side.
Indeed, I think in general, people are somewhat hesitant of change, right? And especially when you have technological change, maybe today it is harder for us to understand what this means because we are like every day witnessing technological development at a speed that it's impossible to comprehend and keep up with. But back in the day, to your point, when internet was a new thing, and I'm assuming a lot of people were also hesitant, afraid, or certainly they didn't realize that this is going to become the new kind of means of doing business.
You have to understand that when we started off, billions and billions of dollars were lost through the dot-com bubble burst. Literally millions of people lost their pension because some big companies invested into that. So there was a lot of negative news around the whole internet space. And then you come and say, hey, internet is the future. Yeah, no, it isn't. It's only for the ones who like to see adult content and yeah, what else? I don't know. It's like that. That's what, and you see what's there. And so between what your vision is and what you expect from others and what you get back, there's such a huge discrepancy. Was. And so, yes, that was honestly one of the biggest challenges. We were always facing that ignorance on all levels when we had our epic fights against the French AFNIC, who was the registry of the .fr, when we fighted against the whole CAC 40 companies like Air France, all the big companies in France who wanted actually to stop internet, literally, where we got help then from our arch enemies to stop them. Epic fights, which we had to fight because of this ignorance. So again, what it comes back to is persistence. And in a sense, and that's probably the most important one, is finding that calm in these storms, and keep pushing where you think it's right. Even so, and we were wrong very often. Huh? We don't talk about the companies which didn't work because there were more. Keep pushing. Just keep going on.
Indeed, yeah. I think having the perseverance and determination is so important, especially when you are creating technology that is disrupting industries, right? And also, while on this topic of sharing and also maybe giving advice, you have raised capital through your entrepreneurial career. What advice can you share with startup founders in regards to approaching fundraising? What should entrepreneurs keep in mind when seeking investment for their ventures?
Something I didn't do every time. Bootstrap as long as you can. I just come out of a lunch today with a very fascinating business, a young guy, and he's raising capital. So for the first hour, we talked about how he raises capital, and we discussed that. And then I just asked the question, with what you are doing, why are you raising capital now? Yeah, would be great. And then I can get this grant and so on, so that. But how much did you work on your business the last 6 months? I said, well, really not as much. And we only had an increase of 200,000 users on our platform. Like they have 600,000 users on their platform. And we only had a decrease of 200. We thought we would get more, but I literally had no time. I said, how much money do you need now to come to 1.5 million? He said, with the growth hacking and marketing, the guerrilla marketing techniques we are using, they're very good in that. Maybe 150K. I said, can you come up with that? Yeah, we can find a way. I said, well, do that. So, why? Because then he can monetize. Then he can show that he can do money. Then he will get 3 times higher valuation than now, and so on and so on. So think about, when is the time to raise? What is it? Try to raise only when you have revenue. When you don't need to be break even, but when you have revenue, try not to sell the dream. As anyhow, in these tough times of VC investing, it will be very hard to get money anyhow. Just go bootstrap it as long as you can, if that's possible for you, especially when you are in B2C. When you're in B2B, it's more difficult because you have these long signing times very often, and so lead times to business and so on, which are creating a challenge, and you need to pre-finance that. So that's another conversation. But really take the discomfort to bootstrap as long as you can. Because especially in our environment where we are not having hundreds and hundreds of VCs competing, your valuation is never in your favor when you go too early for fundraising. So I think really that's one of the advices I can give. If you raise funds with VCs, work with people you like. As metaphysical what I will say now, but you need to feel them. You need to feel that you have an alignment with the person you are talking to, that there is an alignment on the business. And I know it's difficult because there are these millions waiting. So that can cloud these kind of feelings very much. But try to go through that noise and feel, I want to work with this guy because he understands me, he gets me, he understands where I'm coming from. Because if you do that, then you will have a partner. You will not have money. And you need partners, especially as in early investment, because the next investment round comes and then the one after. So you need to be sure that if you have that link, you assure yourself that there might just be follow-up investment in good or bad times, that they help you to raise and so on. So they all will tell you that they will do, and they all do, but you need to align with it. You
Yeah.
need to feel that they want and that you can work.
Yeah, I think the human connection is crucial because the relationship is maybe it's going to be long, at least few years long. And at times that relationship will be tested, right? Because startup will go through very challenging times, and having someone who connects you on a personal level and has your back in a way, kind of, right? Not just invested in you, but also supports you, believes in you and there for you. And also in terms of maybe sharing expertise, mentorship, guidance. I think that's so, so important. And maybe now we can get back to, shall I call your life's calling or your personal mission, which you had back in the 2000s, but you decided to, I want to say, to park the idea, right? Because you eventually returned to that idea in 2019. You returned to your initial idea of building business around human development, personal development. You completed your coaching certification and established Zentrepreneur, where you help entrepreneurs achieve peak performance through inner peace and alignment. Transitioning from running your 50 employee company to becoming a solopreneur must have been, I assume, a tough transition. It's a tough challenge to let go of something you've built, where you have a community, where you are the responsible for a group of people, and then all of a sudden now you are alone on your own. For our listeners who might be also considering a rebrand, right? Maybe they're transitioning from being a corporate professional to starting their own business. Can you maybe share from your own experience what goes into that rebranding process, both internally as well as how you communicate it to the outside world?
Well, it's a huge topic, but I think we need to kick it off with, in my coaching business, I meet a lot of executives, a lot of founders who, in a sense, are hiding themselves behind their company. So they are hiding themselves behind it, and they are, in a sense, they don't want to think about their own identity. They just want to think about the company identity. So as soon as you go, that's good or bad, it's another conversation. You can invite me for another talk about that. So it takes a whole podcast. But when you become solopreneur, that's where you cannot hide anymore. So it means that you are exposed. You are exposing yourself. So this question, this identity question, being clear on who you are, what is it you want to do beyond money? What do you really want to achieve? And your values becomes incredibly crucial. Because if you create a brand without asking yourself that question, good luck. Because it might just not be, you might just be right, but most likely you are not. Means that you will not be in alignment with yourself. And the only way how a solopreneurship journey can work is when you're aligned. Because obviously the hardships are different and sometimes even way more complex. Like I always say, it's like I'm an entrepreneur since 99. I'm an entrepreneur since 2020 in a sense. So it's like, because it's a totally different journey. But obviously I profit tremendously from my experience, but you are faced with everything yourself, with every successful customer you assigned, branding decision which is just not working, and so on. So that's on the first part of your question. What needs to be done? So first, insight, go into your identity, think about it, and don't think that once it's done, it's done. It evolves, and it's actually incredibly nice that it evolves, because it opens up new avenues where you can get revenue. So it's something. At the beginning I was clear, I will not work with businesses anymore. I just will go for the deep stuff, and so on and so on. I'm so happy that I'm not doing that anymore, because I love that part of me, which is ideation, creating. Like I was in this coaching call this morning with this exuberant energy guy from the UK who just makes it happen, to most likely now to raise 2 million, one person. I said, and being there and guiding him how to create it and so on, and giving him all that. It's amazing. Now I love that. So my identity shifted from beginning of 2020 to now. It evolved. It growed. That's why I love to call talk about growth identity, because it growed. And that's how it is in a company as much as for a person. So in the external, the rebranding exercise is really important. And I underestimated that incredibly, because I created my system. I think I took 2021 to really like brain dump everything, and let's say 75% of what I am working on now was done then. And then I just went out and I thought, no, I can sell. And it didn't work. Why it didn't work? Because people say, oh, Marco is, yeah, he is inhuman now. Like, yeah, he just doesn't know what to do. So he just does that. So people don't take you serious. So you need to rebrand, or at least I needed to rebrand myself. 2023 was my year of full rebranding. For a year, I shot out, I think, something like 150 videos. So vastly not all good, but it was a rebranding. And so it happens that now people, even so from my old life, say, oh yeah, Mark is doing that. And so your social media work, even so people say you don't find customers on social media. I don't know. I don't agree. It's hard, but you can get there. But it's so important, because even so the people who are not, they're not signing up. It's like the amount of people I meet who's telling me, oh yeah, I saw that. Oh, I was in Portugal last week. I did marketing work with my team. Already 2 people said this week, oh, you were in Portugal last week. Because it wasn't. So people are watching what you're doing. So use that to market, to brand yourself. Use the words, be clear on what you want to achieve. And then obviously don't do that with the logic of, oh yeah, we'll sell that to them tomorrow. Because there's nothing more. See, I see that in my posts. I do posts when I sell an event. Literally views go down because LinkedIn anyhow blocks doesn't show so many to so many people, but even engagement, everything goes down. Be there, give everything you have, because there's always somebody who says, I want to work with this guy. It happens that I have people popping up through LinkedIn, just booking a meeting through the link, and that they become customers. It took me 4 years to get there.
Mm.
Not like every week that happens. So then we'll talk again. But this rebranding exercise is crucial.
Indeed, yeah. No, thank you so much, Marco, for sharing your experience. I think with anything, it takes so much time and effort, and it is so important to create the credibility and visibility with your audience, to create a community where people, they follow, they know what you're doing, and they start kind of getting to know you and reach a level where they think they can trust you, and then they are ready to work with you. But I think it's important to build that credibility as well as to add value and share a value with your followers.
And
And
maybe
yeah,
can I just add something that just popped up? And then you're a solopreneur. And as a solopreneur, you need to accept one very simple but not so easy to put into place thing, which is you need to follow the rule who, not how. Always think who can do that for me, not how can I do it. Because this how, because you're a solopreneur, just might take you 3 days out of your week, which you could have used for something else, which were more productive, more efficient, brought more money. So who, not how, and there's a book, Dan Sullivan, just look it up, take that book. It's crucial. I talked about my marketing team in Portugal. Obviously, I didn't hire them full time. These are people I trust, I know since a long time, with whom I work for my marketing. They do stuff, they give me advice, they help me. It's like I can also I can read everything and find it out myself, but do I have the time as a solopreneur to do that? I don't. Always ask you that question. Who? Not.
that's so important. And I think, I mean, I am guilty as charged, because in the beginning, especially when you start your journey, right, as a solopreneur, you think that you are alone, you have to do everything on your own, and you might have the time to learn this, but is it worth the time, right? Because your time is the most valuable asset that you have. And I think it's important to ask yourself, who is the better fit to do this job, so I don't have to spend, I don't know, 10 hours where someone can do the job in one, right? Yeah, thank you so much for that. And as a coach, you work a lot with entrepreneurs, as you've also mentioned. In your coaching work, you emphasize the importance of spiritual intelligence and aligning business strategy with personal purpose. Can you explain how entrepreneurs can incorporate spiritual awareness in their business decisions? And why is this so vital for success, especially in today's complex and fast changing world?
Two accesses to that, accesses to answering that question. The first one is we are all driven by three questions: who am I? Why am I here? Where do I go? And actually, that happens. That's as much as for us as a person, as much for a company. So that's why I talk about identity, because that's the question. But that's the one aspect. So we can go deep into this and what drives this kind of thinking and where do we find these answers. But it is not so much about that. It's about spiritual intelligence as a practice, practicing to see the beauty in everything, practicing your intuition, practicing your capacity to create purpose, practicing your possibility to be at service. These are only some of the capacities you can hone, which will drive your spiritual intelligence, but drive your company in a way where I don't like to use the term, but don't have another one now in my head, where you create ethic business, where you create business which follows a framework which you are there to. But if you're not asking yourself these questions, if you're not honing these kind of capacities, you very easily go somewhere else. You very easily just step out of it because there's this one opportunity. I just did it once, but you know how I do anything. This is how I do everything. And so through the fact honing to keep these spiritual intelligent capacities to create a practice, you are creating that muscle to stay true to yourself as a person and as a company. So there is no big divide between, oh yeah, how do I bring spirituality into companies? Everything you need to do for yourself to be in alignment with your own values, with your own purpose, with your own identity is what you have to do in your company. So there's not like a big work to do. It's just to be aware that it is the same work you actually need to do for yourself. You need to do for your company.
And maybe, just to follow up, because I'm thinking what audience might be thinking as they are listening to this conversation, right? Someone might say, Marco is great. You have had over 20 years of entrepreneurial experience. You've built several companies, and now you are in the stage of your life where you become more spiritual and more aligned. But I'm very early in the stage of building my business. There's so much to do, a lot of things to take care of, prioritize, and maybe spirituality and mindfulness isn't something that I need to be prioritizing. Maybe it should come after. So what would you say to that person who thinks there are a lot more important things to do in relation to building a business, and maybe spirituality should come at a later stage?
It depends on how you define spirituality. And that's why I didn't go into a big definition now. I would tell them, why the heck are you doing this? Why are you an entrepreneur? Is it really only to become multimillionaire? Or is it to create a happiness you don't have in your life? So what are you focusing on? What will be your focus? Will it be the money or will it be the happiness? Understanding that happiness, and I use that term, so you can use contentment before, it doesn't matter, fulfillment, happiness. I just like happiness for several reasons. But that happiness is the ultimate. And financial success at the level is one of the pillars of that. But there are other parts of happiness which are, again, guy just talked to him recently, says, I am at this age, I want to have kids. He's an entrepreneur, a very successful entrepreneur, actually. But he is evolved in the sense like, and 30 years old, so not my age. It's like, that's something, it's part of your happiness, creating a family. Part of your happiness is creating a social life which you love. Because if you're just thinking that the success is the financial part, and I'm not saying everybody, but most of entrepreneurs, and honestly, I didn't see many who didn't, will burn out, will be, the worst thing which can happen to them is they will be awfully rich and unhappy to the bone. I will never ever forget one of at the beginning of my journey at Datacenter Luxembourg, we had offices in the city, and there was this French internet entrepreneur coming in. Like, he was, at that time, nobody talks about, nobody knows him, but at that time it was like the guy. And he comes into our offices. I was so excited. Oh, that's amazing. And he comes in, and then he says, guys, I am so successful, so rich. It took me 3 divorces. Oh man, what I am saying. And I thought, are you really happy already then? Because he probably wasn't. I didn't have the capacity to go deeper with him. I didn't have the mandate to do so. But that's the question to ask. It's not about spirituality. It's not about searching for God or the universe or whatever. That's a step you decide or not to go to. But if you're truly happy, you're the most spiritual person in the world.
Mm.
And that's something which has nothing to do with age. It's just a shift. And actually, Generation Z has an access to that my generation for sure didn't have. It's just like, I just do what I really, it's like, I do purpose. I do work on purpose. So there is an access.
Mm.
Leveraging that is what I think is the spiritual part and accessible to anyone.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Marco, for that. I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
I'm
we
going
are
on and on. I'm sorry. You
exactly.
said,
But we are reaching the end of the episode. But there is still one question that I would like to ask you. This question was left for you by my previous guest. They left this question without knowing who they are leaving it for. The question reads: what animal would you compare your entrepreneurial journey to?
wow, that's a good one. I don't know why that pops up now. That's really interesting. Let's just go with that. A bear. Not as being bear market, don't get me wrong. But a bear, because it's just steady. It just goes on. It should not be fast. It should just be persistent. As I said several times during this podcast.
Great. Well, Marco, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Inside Story podcast and share your wealth of entrepreneurial experience with us, with our audience. I think today you have emphasized how important it is to really get to know you, understand who you are, what are the values that driving you, and what are the aspirations you are going after. And I think it's so important, as you said, to know who you are and then align whatever business you build with that kind of personal identity and seek a higher purpose, if you will. You called it happiness. I like to think of fulfillment, right? Because our life isn't just about one business that we build. It encompasses so many different aspects of our life. And I think it's so fundamental for us individuals to be at a stage where we are happy, content, and fulfilled. And business and following entrepreneurial journey, hopefully it's just one way to reach that happiness. So thank you so much, Marco, for sharing your wisdom with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for giving me the chance to do so.